Mishna and Berurah. Continuing the laws of the Shema, we are in Siman Ayin Beis. We are in chapter 72. And we are continuing to discuss the parameters of the exemption when one is dealing with a funeral, burial, or getting certain needs for the departed or for the mourners. Who's exempted? So we're continuing now in the who's exempted category, from the Shema and from other things related to that, such as prayers and so on, other tefillos. So now we're talking about people who are carrying what's called the mitah, which is sometimes called the bier. It really, here we're referring to that they put the body often not in a coffin and just carried it out on a simple bed. And it was carried on four sides. And then the people who are engaged in what's called yichum avelim, in comforting the mourners. And then there's another group of people who accompany the procession. There's a procession in common Jewish custom to take the body to the final burial site and to rest it there. So these people are all going to have certain types of times when they are considered osek b'mitzvah. They are engaged in the mitzvah, and one is currently actively engaged in the mitzvah. They need to do that one before going back to Shema. And this means that they can't just take the time to do both. But we'll see over here when they are actually considered engaged. So the people who are carrying the actual body, people who are engaged in that, and then the people who after that, so they're kind of doing a bucket brigade. They're passing to them and passing it to the next group who will carry it, and then they're passing it to the next group after that. So whether they are the people who are waiting to it, they're in front of the body, or in the coffin itself, or the bier itself, or the people who are right behind it. Okay, so since the people who are coming later are needed in order to carry it, if they are still needed at the end of this line, okay, and all the other people who were with there, who are still needed, even though they're not at the end of the line, they're all obligated. The people who are at the end of the line are exempt, and people who are at the other end of the line who aren't needed for it to carry it are obligated. Okay, so as long as you are engaged in the carrying process, so you are going to be exempt. Now, the interesting thing to point out about the Mishna is, even though you have time, you can see when it's coming, and you'll have time to know whether or not you can recite the Shema, nonetheless, you are exempt, because sometimes, they're going to say, hey, I need to run, can you take my place? So therefore, since you're part of the needs of it, you are considered exempt. Okay? Now, in a case where they are considered having a need for them to carry it, the Mishna explains, in a city where they have the Chevra Kadisha, and they are set to do this job, and all of these people are the ones who keep passing the body along to its final resting place. Since they want to be part of this mitzvah, they are exempt from the Shema because they are engaged fully in this mitzvah. And even those who are a little bit further down from it, it's a large group, they're also exempt. In a place where they don't have a group like this to engage in all of that, so therefore the people who are immediately near the coffin itself, or the bier itself, the point is that they're going to be engaged in it at some point, and so the immediate ones are going to be exempt from the mitzvah. But people who are far away from it, if they're not necessarily going to do it, then they're obligated to recite the Shema before getting involved. So we also said over here, in this case, that the people who are not on the receiving end of the body are obligated to recite the Shema. So we know for a fact that there is a mitzvah here, which is to accompany the person. It's considered Kabilas Chesed, and it's considered a Torah mitzvah. So you're not considered engaged in the mitzvah immediately. And so therefore you have the time to, at the very least, to recite the very first line of the Shema, or to recite the first paragraph. And you could really do Some other parts of the mitzvahs could be done even while walking along with it. Okay. However, we're going to learn later on in Siman Kuvav 106 that this is enough to exempt you from tefillah from Shema Esrei because it's only a rabbinic mitzvah. Now, the second halacha is that one should not be engaging in the funeral ceremony right at the time of the Shema, especially when you don't have enough time to take it out and to bury them before the time of the Shema is done. And if you did it anyway, then you shouldn't stop to recite the Shema. So, here's how it works. The Mishna explains. If you have started taking the body out and the time of Shema has begun, so they really should have waited. So they really should wait to start this mitzvah. So they should daven first and wait for the community to daven, and then you should go ahead and start this. Okay, so we say there are certain exemptions. The Mishnah brings down that if a person is an unbelievably famous person, like a big Talmid Chacham, then there seems to be a reason to take them out. But nonetheless, we shouldn't be starting the funeral until everyone's done with Shacharis. So based on what the Mechaber says, that when the time of the Kriya Shema comes around, it sounds like the rule also is the same for the evening. So you should daven Mariv first, and then go ahead and take the body out. However, the other opinions seem to agree that if it's an evening burial, then you don't have to necessarily have said the Mariv service first, because if you don't bury him now, then you're going to have a possible violation of Baal Talim. You're leaving the body over. You left it over for a whole night. Okay? So even though you could bury him at night after you recited the Shema, nonetheless, you're going to be passing over the mitzvah asay of burying him. Right? Because it says, Ki kavor tikbarnu, you shall certainly bury them on that very day. So if you don't bury him now, you're going to lose the day. And this is talking about when the end of the day is the time for the sun to set. So even though there is kind of a chiyuv marv at that point, we're still saying that should be okay. Now, if you did wait until after the 3 stars came out, the Mishna says then you should daven marv first and then go ahead with the burial. And we also say the rule is if you went ahead and did the burial anyway, even though we told you not to, you don't stop the burial process. And this means specifically the people who were going to be carrying. Okay, and even if that means you're going to miss the time for Shema, because the truth is that you already are engaged in the mitzvah, even though we asked you not to do the mitzvah, you're doing it anyway. Okay, next halacha, this is Gimel. The people who are engaged in the eulogies, as long as the departed is still sitting there before them, they can go ahead and take a break where one at a time they go and recite the Shema and daven. If the departed has already left, and then if there's no departed there, then the body's already been taken out, and they're still engaged in doing eulogies, then they should go ahead and recite and daven, and the person who was the surviving part of the mourners, who are the surviving ones of the departed, should just sit and wait until after they've finished davening. And so the halacha is they have to leave the room, because the Mishnah explains you're not allowed to do mitzvahs in front of the departed because it's like making fun of them. You don't have any mitzvahs anymore, so don't do that. And they go and they daven. Now, the Mishnah brings down that the case of where you have the person still there before you and you're engaged in eulogies, many people disagree with this about going ahead and davening. They hold, their opinion is that by Shemona Esrei, when the person's still there, it's not required to go ahead and daven while they're still there. You don't have to go and daven. So, because it's not a Torah mitzvah is what it comes down to. So the person who is in charge of giving the eulogies, they can certainly be lenient. Okay, they don't have to stop the eulogies in order to go daven, but they have to recite the Shema. But some people also would argue that he would even be exempt from Shema as well. But so for sure, since it's a dispute, definitely be exempt from Shemona Esrei. Okay, and since they are in another room, so it says that if the person has moved on, they can go ahead and they don't have to leave the room that the departed was in. So even if the onain is sitting there and they have a minyan, the onain, the person who has lost this person today, who has lost the beloved person on that day, will be there. So they're going to be quietly because they cannot respond to anything, as we learned in the previous chapter. Dalit. Now let's say you've buried them. And now what happens is after you bury them, you're supposed to give words of comfort to the mourners. The way this process generally plays out is the person passes away. They do a tahara. They wrap the body in the tachrich, and after it's been the purification process has happened, and they immediately take it out of the city. So now they take it out to the cemetery to bury it if it's outside the city limits. Once that burial is done, and all of the mourners are going to stand there and wait to receive comfort. Okay, and everybody who accompanied them, they follow them from the burial site to the place where they normally have people stand to receive comfort. And the way they do that is the mourners stand in a line, and they stand and they wait to receive comfort. If everybody can get through this line and offer comfort to all of the mourners, even if they had the chance to recite the first line of Shema until they get to your spot in the line where you're waiting to do comfort, then you can start the Shema. And if you don't have that time, you should not start. The Ramah says, this is assuming that there's time to recite the Shema later that morning. Okay, so there's a lot going on over here. So this mitzvah is a little bit different because we're saying that you're kind of engaged in the mitzvah, but you also kind of know how long it's going to take. So you're not considered really, really involved in it. Okay, so that's what this difference is that you're not really what we called before Torah. You're not fully engaged in it, like you're waiting to carry the coffin out and so on. And so therefore you should start and recite whatever you can. And otherwise, we say that you should recite the Shema and then go do the comforting. Okay, halacha hey. This is the last one in here today. All those who stand in the line to be comforted, the interior ones that get the meaning you're the regular people, not the mourners. It's yourself. If you're able to see the person in mourning, you do not have to start the Shema. You are exempt. And those who are standing on the outside are obligated. So again, we see that this mitzvah is predicated on whether or not you are really fully engaged in doing something. But you see here that if you are standing in the line and you can't see the mourners, then you have to recite the Shema. Again, this is assuming that you went ahead and started a little early. Okay, let's see. I don't think we're going to have time to start 73 today, even though it's also short. It's not one that is easy to do in just a few minutes, about 10 minutes. So I don't want to start that. So we'll pick up with 73 next time about what happens when you're at home and need to recite the Shema. Like, let's say you're lying in bed. We will hold it here for today. We will pick up. This is the last shir of Tafshin Pei Gimel. I'm sorry, Tafshin Pei Daled. This is the last of Tafshin Pei Daled, and we will see you next year. Have a Shana Tova Umesuka, a good Gebench Jor.